The mockery begins. Emerges empire. The Galactic Dominion was the strongest empire in the universe. For over 1,000 years, no race had dared to challenge them. They had the biggest fleet, the deadliest weapons, and the most advanced technology. Their soldiers were trained from birth, and their warships could destroy entire planets in a single attack. And now, they had set their eyes on humanity. The Dominion's High Council gathered in their grand war room, a massive chamber made of polished black stone. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing every planet and fleet under their rule. At the center of the room stood Grand Admiral Vorton, the supreme commander of the Dominion Armada. "We have conquered countless worlds," Vorton said, his deep voice filling the chamber. "Yet these humans refuse to surrender. They are weak, backward, and foolish. Their fleet is nothing but a collection of scrap metal. And yet," he paused, narrowing his glowing red eyes, "they resist." The other commanders chuckled. One of them, General Xerath, smirked. "Their so-called fleet is a joke, Admiral. Rusty old ships, outdated weapons, and slow engines. They stand no chance against the Dominion." Vorton nodded but did not smile. He had fought many wars, and he knew that an enemy should never be underestimated. But he also knew that the Dominion was powerful. No one had ever defeated them. The massive screen in the war room flickered, showing images of the human defense fleet. It was exactly as the commanders had described. Old, mismatched ships floating in space like abandoned wreckage. Some of the ships were even built from salvaged parts of destroyed Dominion vessels. "They are desperate," General Xerath said, laughing. "Using our own broken ships against us. It is pathetic." The other commanders joined in the laughter. But in the shadows of the chamber, a lone figure watched silently. He was an intelligence officer, and he had studied humans closely. He had read reports of their battles, their history, and their unbreakable will. He wanted to speak, to warn them that humans were more dangerous than they seemed. But no one in the Dominion listened to warnings. The human response. Meanwhile, far away on Earth's hidden war base, a group of human leaders sat around a circular table. Unlike the Dominion's grand chamber, this war room was simple: functional screens, metal walls, and no unnecessary decoration. Admiral Jonas Cade, leader of the human defense fleet, stared at the Dominion's latest message. A giant alien face filled the screen. Grand Admiral Vorton. His voice was cold, filled with arrogance. "Surrender now, humans. Your ships are junk. Your technology is primitive. You are not warriors. You are ants before a storm. Accept your fate, or be wiped from existence." The message ended, and silence filled the room. Commander Riley Morgan clenched her fists. "They think we are weak. They think we are already dead," General Hector Vasquez added, his voice filled with quiet anger. Admiral Cade leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke. "Good." The others turned to him in confusion. "The Dominion underestimates us," Cade continued. "They think our fleet is garbage. They believe we are weak. Let them believe it." He stood up and pointed at the holographic map. "Because when the battle begins, they will not be facing a weak fleet. They will be facing something they have never seen before." A slow smile spread across Commander Morgan's face. "You mean the plan?" Cade nodded. "Yes. The scrap fleet is ready. And the Dominion has no idea what's coming for them. The Dominion prepares for war." Back in the Dominion's Grand War Room, Grand Admiral Vorton issued the final order. "The entire Dominion Armada will attack Earth," he declared. "We will wipe out their pathetic fleet in a single strike. Leave nothing behind. Destroy them all." The commanders roared in approval. The Dominion's fleets began moving, hundreds of warships burning across the stars, heading straight for Earth. They were certain of victory. They did not know they were walking into a trap that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. The battle approaches. The Dominion fleet moved like a massive storm through space, an endless wave of black warships, their hulls glowing with the energy of their weapons. At the heart of this unstoppable force was Grand Admiral Vorton, seated in his command chair aboard the dreadnought Tyrant's Wrath. His sharp eyes studied the holographic display before him, showing the final approach toward Earth. The humans have not moved, a tactical officer reported. Their fleet remains stationary, just floating near their planet's orbit. General Xerath, standing beside Vorton, smirked. Pathetic. They don't even have the courage to run. They have accepted their fate. Vorton was silent. He was confident in victory, but something about this felt too easy. Humans were stubborn. They had resisted the Dominion for years. Why would they suddenly give up? He leaned forward, scanned their fleet. Again. The officers worked quickly, but the results were the same. No signs of advanced technology. No traps. Just outdated, barely functional ships. The fleet is nothing but rusted metal and old engines. Admiral, an officer confirmed. Vorton exhaled slowly. Then we end this. With a simple command, the Dominion Armada surged forward, weapons charging. The scrap fleet awakens. Back on Earth's war room, Admiral Jonas Cave stood watching the monitors as the Dominion fleet approached. Around him, his officers were calm, too calm for a force about to face complete destruction. Commander Riley Morgan checked the system reports one last time. They've taken the bait, she said. General Hector Vasquez cracked his knuckles. They think they're about to win. Let's show them why they're wrong. Admiral Cade gave the order. Engage the protocol. In an instant, the seemingly dead fleet came to life. Engines that had remained cold suddenly burned with power. Weapons that had appeared rusted began to glow with energy. From the wreckage of old ships, hidden compartments opened, revealing secret defense systems. But that was only the beginning. The scrap fleet, as the Dominion called it, was not made of junk. It was a trap. Each ship had been modified with adaptive shielding, energy-draining technology, and hidden eye-controlled weapons. Every vessel, no matter how broken it appeared, was part of a larger living machine, capable of shifting, merging, and reshaping itself mid-battle. The Dominion had walked into a death zone. First blood. The Dominion fleet opened fire, confident in an easy victory. Plasma beams and missiles tore through space, heading straight for the scrap fleet. But then, something strange happened. Instead of exploding, the human ships absorbed the energy. Their hulls, once dark and lifeless, glowed with stolen power. Vorton's eyes widened in shock. What is this? Before he could react, the scrap fleet struck back. From within the rusted ships, thousands of hidden drones launched, moving like a deadly swarm. They slipped past Dominion shields and began tearing into their hulls. The first Dominion warship exploded. The second lost control, crashing into its own fleet. Panic spread among the Dominion ranks. This isn't possible, General Xerath stammered. They're just old ships. How? Admiral Vorton clenched his fists. We've been tricked. The battle begins. The humans had turned scrap metal into the deadliest weapon the galaxy had ever seen. And now, they were going to win. The trap is set. The Dominion fleet was in chaos. What should have been an easy victory had turned into a nightmare. Ships were exploding, weapons were failing, and panic spread through their ranks like wildfire. Admiral Vorton gritted his teeth as he watched his once unbreakable fleet struggle. The humans had tricked them, and now they were paying the price. How is this happening? General Xerath shouted, slamming his fist against the console. Their fleet is junk. It shouldn't even be flying. Vorton's sharp eyes scanned the battlefield. The human ships, once thought to be nothing more than floating wrecks, were moving with impossible precision. They dodged attacks, absorbed enemy fire, and struck back with terrifying efficiency. But the real horror was the drones. Thousands of them, small, fast, and relentless. poured out of the human ships. They moved like a swarm of hungry beasts, slipping through shields, drilling into hulls, and disabling systems from the inside. The Dominion ships had no defense. The scrap fleet's true power. Aboard the human flagship, Admiral Jonas Cade stood with arms crossed, watching the battle unfold. "They're falling apart," Commander Riley Morgan said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. Cade nodded. "They never expected us to be this strong." The scrap fleet was not a collection of old, broken ships. It was a highly advanced war machine, built from salvaged technology, fused together in ways the Dominion couldn't even comprehend. Each ship was equipped with adaptive armor, which changed its properties based on enemy attacks. Each drone was programmed to target weak points, overwhelming Dominion defenses in seconds. Each energy weapon was designed to absorb enemy fire, turning the Dominion's own power against them. It was warfare reimagined, and the Dominion had walked right into the trap. The first ship falls. A massive explosion shook the battlefield. One of the Dominion's flagships, a vessel 10 times the size of a human battleship, broke apart in a fiery blast. Inside the Dominion war room, officers screamed as data screens flickered red. "We've lost the dagger of fate. The Crimson Spear is losing control. We're being overrun." General Xerath's face twisted with rage. "Then fight harder." But no amount of fighting harder would change the outcome. The Dominion Armada had always won through raw power. They had never fought an enemy like this, one that used strategy, technology, and deception to turn their strength against them. Vorton's decision. Admiral Vorton knew he had two choices: keep fighting and risk losing everything. Retreat and warn the Dominion High Council about the humans' true power. His pride screamed at him to continue the battle, to crush these primitive creatures. But his instincts told him the truth. If they stayed, they would all die. "Order all ships to pull back," Vorton commanded, his voice cold and controlled. Xerath turned to him in shock. "We can't retreat. We are the Dominion. We don't run from." "We were outsmarted," Vorton snapped. "And if we don't leave now, we'll be wiped out." The order was given. The remaining Dominion ships turned and fled, their mighty fleet broken and humiliated. The humans' victory. Aboard the human flagship, cheers erupted as the Dominion forces retreated. "They're running," General Vasquez said with a grin. "I never thought I'd see the day." Commander Riley smirked. "Guess they didn't like our junk fleet after all." But Admiral Cade's face remained serious. He knew this war wasn't over. "They'll be back," he said, his voice low. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." For now, though, humanity had won a battle no one thought was possible. And across the galaxy, the legend of the scrap fleet had just begun. The true power of the scrap fleet. The Dominion had fled. For the first time in history, the mighty Galactic Dominion Armada had been forced into retreat, not by a superior force, not by overwhelming firepower, but by a fleet they had mocked as worthless junk. The battlefield was littered with wreckage. Smoke and debris floated in the void, the remains of what was supposed to be humanity's final stand. Instead, it had become the greatest victory in human history. Aboard the human flagship, Admiral Jonas Cade stood on the bridge, watching the last of the Dominion ships disappear into hyperspace. Around him, the crew cheered and celebrated, but his expression remained serious. "We won this battle," he said, turning to his officers, "but the war is far from over." Commander Riley Morgan leaned on the command console. "Let them come again. Next time, they won't even get the chance to retreat." General Hector Vasquez chuckled. "They called us weak. Now they know what human ingenuity really looks like." And that was the truth. The scrap fleet wasn't just a collection of old, broken-down ships. It was the result of years of research, adaptation, and sheer human resilience. Each ship had been rebuilt from wreckage, yes, but not in the way the Dominion assumed. The adaptive armor had been salvaged from old Dominion ships, modify to absorb, and repurpose energy attacks. The hidden AI battle systems were programmed to study enemy tactics in real time, adjusting human strategy instantly. The drone swarms had been developed using nanotechnology, small, intelligent, and capable of self-repair mid-battle. The fusion weapons had been secretly developed using enemy tech, giving humans a way to turn Dominion firepower back against them. The scrap fleet was never weak. It had simply been underestimated, and that mistake had cost the Dominion dearly. The Dominion's defeat echoes across the galaxy. Word of the battle spread faster than light. Across the Dominion's vast empire, their subject races heard the news. The unstoppable Dominion Armada had been defeated. And worse, defeated by humans, a race the Dominion had mocked as weaklings. For the first time in centuries, the oppressed races of the galaxy saw hope. In secret corners of the universe, rebel groups whispered among themselves, if humans could fight back and win, then maybe they could too. The Dominion's High Council received the news with shock and rage. They lost to scrap ships. One counselor hissed, "This must be a mistake." But Grand Admiral Vorton, who had barely escaped the battle, knew the truth. He had seen the scrap fleet's power with his own eyes. "These are not the same humans we faced before," he admitted grimly. "They have evolved. They have adapted. And if we do not take them seriously now." He looked around the council chamber, his voice dark and filled with warning. Then the Dominion itself may not survive. Humanity's next move. Back on Earth, the victory was celebrated, but human leaders knew they couldn't afford to relax. Admiral Cade gathered his top officers. A hologram flickered to life, showing the Dominion's remaining fleet formations. "They will come back," he said. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." Commander Morgan nodded. "Then we strike first." Cade smiled. "Exactly." With the scrap fleet repaired and improved, humanity was no longer just fighting for survival. Now, they were taking the war to the Dominion. And this time, the galaxy would know. Humanity was no one's prey. They were the predators now. The turning point. The scrap fleet had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity knew the Dominion would return, stronger, angrier, and with no intention of making the same mistake twice. The question was, would humanity be ready? The Dominion's plan for revenge. In the cold void of space, deep in Dominion territory, Grand Admiral Vorton stood before the High Council. The room was massive, built from polished black stone, glowing with eerie green lights. The council members, ancient and powerful rulers of the Dominion, sat in their towering thrones, watching Vorton with cold, unblinking eyes. "You failed us," one of them hissed. Vorton clenched his fists but did not lower his gaze. "The humans were underestimated," he admitted. "That mistake will not happen again." The council members murmured among themselves. The defeat had shaken the very foundation of the Dominion's power. Never before had an enemy, especially a primitive race like humanity, humiliated them in battle. "What is your plan?" another counselor asked. Vorton took a deep breath and spoke. "We must strike before they do. They will expect us to regroup, to be cautious." His red eyes burned with fury. "Instead, we will erase them before they become a true threat." A murmur of approval spread through the chamber. "Prepare the obliterator fleet," Vorton commanded. "We will not attack their defenses. We will burn their homeworld to ash." The largest and deadliest Dominion fleet ever assembled was now on its way to Earth. Humanity's desperate preparation. Back on Earth, the mood was tense. The victory against the Dominion was historic, but everyone knew the next battle would be even worse. Inside the underground war room, Admiral Jonas Cade stood at the center of a massive holographic table, surrounded by his top officers. Commander Riley Morgan pointed at the latest reports. "Dominion forces are regrouping. We don't have much time." General Hector Vasquez frowned. "We can't just sit here and wait for them to come back. If we do, we'll be fighting on their terms." Cade nodded. "Exactly. That's why we won't be waiting. Silence filled the room as the officers exchanged glances. You mean we take the fight to them? Morgan asked. A slow smile spread across Cade's face. Why not? They think we're just defending ourselves. But what if we do something they'd never expect? Vasquez chuckled. I like where this is going. Cade turned to the tactical officer. Give me a full scan of their fleet movements. Find me their weakest point. Seconds later, the screen flickered, revealing a secret Dominion refueling station, a vital hub where warships stocked up on supplies before heading into battle. Cade's eyes narrowed. If we destroy this station, their attack on Earth will be delayed, maybe even stopped. Morgan smirked. And it'll send them a message. They're not the only ones who can strike first. The room was silent for a moment. Then Vasquez grinned. Let's do it. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was going on the offensive. The attack on the Dominion supply hub. The scrap fleet launched from Earth, moving through space like ghosts in the night. Their target? The Dominion refueling station. The station was heavily guarded, but not expecting an attack, especially not from humans. As soon as the fleet reached its target, chaos erupted. Drones flooded the station, disabling turrets and hacking defense systems. Scrap fleet ships rained fire, tearing through enemy cruisers. Stealth teams landed inside, planting charges in the fuel reserves. The battle was over in minutes. The refueling station erupted in a massive explosion, sending shockwaves through the sector. But the real damage wasn't just to the Dominion's fleet, it was to their pride. The galaxy reacts. News of the human attack spread across the stars. For the first time, the galaxy saw humans not as prey, but as predators. Rebel factions, long crushed under the Dominion's rule, saw hope. Other alien races, once afraid to fight back, now reconsidered their alliances. Even within the Dominion itself, doubts began to spread. If humans could strike so boldly, what else were they capable of? And in the heart of the Dominion's war room, Grand Admiral Vorton stared at the ruins of his station on the screen. He did not speak. He did not move. Then, slowly, he clenched his fists. They want war. His voice was calm, but filled with deadly intent. Then we will give them war. The turning point has arrived. Back on Earth, Admiral Cade watched the reports roll in. The Dominion's fleet was still coming, but now it was wounded. Slower, disorganized. We just changed the rules of this war, Cade said, turning to his officers. Now, let's finish it. For the first time, the Dominion wasn't just attacking humanity. They were afraid of it. And that changed everything. The desperation of the enemy. The scrap fleet's attack on the Dominion's refueling station had changed everything. For the first time in history, the Galactic Dominion had been forced onto the defensive. No longer was humanity just fighting for survival. Now, they were dictating the war. But Grand Admiral Vorton was not finished. He had spent his entire life in battle, and he knew one simple truth. A wounded beast is the most dangerous of all. And the Dominion was wounded. Inside the Dominion war room, the air was tense inside the Dominion's war chamber. The High Council sat in silence, their glowing eyes fixed on the holographic reports. The refueling station was gone. The humans had struck first, and the once invincible Dominion was beginning to crack. This cannot continue, one counselor hissed. The Dominion has ruled for 1,000 years. We cannot allow a race of scavengers to challenge us. Vorton stood at the center of the room, his hands clasped behind his back. Then we stopped playing by the rules. The counselors turned to him. What are you suggesting? Vorton's expression was cold. Humanity thinks it can fight a war of tactics. They strike and disappear, using deception and strategy. His voice darkened. We will show them that none of it matters when their world burns. Silence filled the room. Then, slowly, the counselors nodded in agreement. The order was given. Deploy the Obliterator fleet. We will not attack their ships. We will not fight their soldiers. We will erase Earth itself. The final Dominion attack begins. From the depths of Dominion space, the Obliterator fleet emerged. It was unlike anything humanity had ever faced before. Massive dreadnoughts, each the size of a small moon, designed for one purpose only: planetary destruction. They did not carry troops. They did not have fighter squadrons. They carried superweapons capable of reducing entire planets to dust. And they were heading straight for Earth, humanity's worst nightmare. The moment Earth's long-range sensors detected the incoming fleet, alarms blared across every military base on the planet. Inside the underground war room, Admiral Jonas Cade and his officers stared at the screen in shock. "This isn't a fleet," Commander Riley Morgan whispered. "This is an execution." General Hector Vasquez clenched his fists. "They aren't even trying to fight us anymore. They just want us gone." Cade exhaled slowly. The Dominion was done playing games. This was their final move. "They don't care about battles anymore," he said grimly. "They just want to end the war with one strike." Morgan turned to him. "Then how do we stop them?" Cade looked at the holographic display. The Obliterator fleet was too massive, too powerful to fight head-on. Even with the scrap fleet's advanced technology, they couldn't win a direct battle against superweapons built to destroy planets. But Cade had learned one important lesson from this war. You don't beat the Dominion by fighting their way. You stop them by making sure they never reach Earth, Cade said. The officers looked at him, waiting. And then Cade gave the order that would decide humanity's fate. "We're going to take the fight to them." The last stand in deep space, the scrap fleet moved out, heading straight for the Obliterator fleet before it could reach Earth. The Dominion was expecting humanity to retreat, to defend their homeworld. Instead, they found themselves facing a suicidal counterattack. The battle erupted in the middle of deep space, far from any planet or safe zone. The Dominion dreadnoughts opened fire, their superweapons tearing through space with blinding energy beams. But the scrap fleet was faster, smarter, and more unpredictable. Stealth teams infiltrated enemy ships, planting explosives deep inside their cores. Drones swarmed, disabling weapons before they could fire. Massive human battleships sacrificed themselves, ramming into Dominion dreadnoughts to stop them from advancing. It was chaos. It was desperation. And it was working. The breaking point. In the heart of battle, Grand Admiral Vorton stood aboard his flagship, watching in horror. The Obliterator fleet was supposed to be unstoppable, and yet, ship by ship, it was falling apart. His officers panicked. "Sir, we've lost 3 dreadnoughts. The humans' heir." "I can see that," Vorton snapped. His mind raced. The Dominion could not afford to lose this fleet. If the Obliterator ships were destroyed, the war was over. And for the first time in his life, Vorton felt something he had never known before. Fear. The last sacrifice. On board the human flagship, Admiral Jonas Cade saw the one opportunity left. The Dominion was breaking. The fleet was crippled, but a few dreadnoughts were still advancing toward Earth. They had one chance to stop them. Cade took a deep breath. "I need a ship to intercept the last dreadnought. One final push." Commander Morgan's voice was steady. "I'll go." Cade turned to her sharply. "Riley." She smiled. "We knew this fight would take everything we had." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "It was an honor, Admiral." Before he could argue, she was already gone. Her battleship, the Iron Vow, moved at full speed, heading straight for the final Dominion dreadnought. Morgan's voice came through the comms, steady and calm. "For Earth." And then the Iron Vow hit the dreadnought at full force, a massive explosion ripping through space. The last Dominion superweapon was destroyed. The battle is won, but at a cost. Silence fell over the battlefield. The Obliterator fleet was no more. Humanity had won. But as Admiral Cade stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the wreckage of the Iron Vow, he felt no joy. Victory had come at a terrible price. The war was not over yet. The Dominion was still out there. But for the first time, they were afraid. And now, humanity was the hunter. The aftermath. The Obliterator fleet was gone. The most powerful weapons the Dominion had ever built lay in ruins, scattered across the cold void of space. Humanity had won. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. The Iron Vow, the ship that had made the final sacrifice, was gone. Commander Riley Morgan, one of the greatest leaders of the war, was lost. On the bridge of the human flagship, Admiral Jonas Cave stood in silence, staring at the debris field. His hands clenched into fists. Around him, the crew cheered, celebrating the impossible victory. But Cade didn't smile. They had survived. But for how long? The Dominion's humiliation. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. For the first time in history, the Galactic Dominion had been defeated not once, but twice. And worse, their greatest weapon had been destroyed by humans, a race they had once laughed at. Inside the Dominion's war chambers, the High Council sat in stunned silence. Their great empire, unbreakable for centuries, had been wounded. One of the counselors slammed his fist onto the table. "This is unacceptable." Another whispered, "The Dominion has never suffered humiliation like this." But Grand Admiral Vorton said nothing. He simply stared at the battlefield reports, his jaw clenched, his mind racing. He had never lost a war. Not once. Until now. And he knew what came next. The other empires in the galaxy, races that had once feared the Dominion, would see weakness. And weakness invited rebellion. The Dominion's rule was crumbling. And it had all started with humanity. Earth mourns its heroes. Back on Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet. People filled the streets, cheering, crying, embracing one another. For the first time in history, humanity had stood against the greatest power in the galaxy, and won. But for those in the military, the victory felt hollow. In a quiet military hangar, Admiral Cave stood with General Hector Vasquez, watching as the names of the fallen were displayed on massive screens. Riley Morgan's name was at the top. "She knew what she was doing," Vasquez said, his voice rough. "She saved us all." Cade exhaled slowly. "She did, but I hate that we had to lose her to win." Vasquez nodded. "We lost good people, but the Dominion lost something more. They lost their fear factor. They lost their control over the galaxy." Cade turned to him. "And that makes them more dangerous than ever. The galaxy reacts." The impact of humanity's victory reached far beyond Earth. Rebel factions across the galaxy rose up against the Dominion, inspired by humanity's success. Neutral alien empires began reconsidering their alliances. Some sent secret messages to Earth, offering trade and military support. The Dominion's military leaders, once seen as unstoppable, were now questioned and doubted by their own people. The balance of power was shifting. For the first time, the Dominion was not the only superpower in the galaxy. And that terrified them. The Dominion's next move. Deep inside the Dominion's war chambers, Grand Admiral Vorton stood before the High Council. "Our enemies are growing bolder," one of the counselors said. "The humans have given them hope." Vorton's voice was calm, but deadly. "Then we will take that hope away." The council members watched him closely. "How?" one of them asked. Vorton's eyes burned with cold fury. "By striking where they least expected." The humans had won a battle, but the war was far from over. And Vorton was about to remind them why the Dominion had ruled for so long. Humanity's next step. Back on Earth, Admiral Cade met with his top officers in the war room. "The Dominion will come back," Cade said. "They won't make the same mistakes." General Vasquez crossed his arms. "Then we need to be stronger, faster, and smarter than ever before." Cade nodded. "We've shown them we can win. Now we need to finish this war before they have a chance to strike again." Silence filled the room. Then Vasquez grinned. "So what's our next move?" Cade stared at the galactic map. his mind already forming a plan. "We take the fight to them," he said. "This war ends on our terms." And so, with the galaxy on the edge of revolution, humanity prepared for the final phase of the war, a battle that would determine the fate of the universe itself. Because now, they weren't just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The galactic reaction. The battle had changed everything. For centuries, the galactic dominion had ruled through fear. No race had dared to challenge them. Their power was absolute. Their enemies were crushed before they could rise. But now, for the first time, that fear was gone. Humanity had defied them, and won. Rebellion sparks across the galaxy. News of the Dominion's defeat spread faster than light. Across the vast empire, whispers of rebellion turned into open resistance. On the slave worlds, entire populations refused to work, chanting the name of Earth. In the outer colonies, planets long ruled by fear declared independence, raising human banners as symbols of defiance. Secret rebel fleets, once hiding in the shadows, now launched open attacks on Dominion supply lines. The Dominion's once unshakable grip on the galaxy was slipping, and it all started with humanity. Alien empires began choosing sides. The galaxy was watching. The Dominion had always been the most powerful force in the universe, but now, with their fleets crippled, their strategy shattered, and their enemies gaining courage, the balance of power was shifting. Neutral empires, who had once feared the Dominion, now faced a choice: support the humans and risk war. Remain neutral and risk being conquered next. Side with the Dominion and hope to keep their power. In the halls of the Zelver Council, a meeting of powerful alien rulers, leaders debated furiously. "The Dominion is weak," one of them hissed. "If we strike now, we can help the humans end their rule." Another, more cautious, shook his head. "The humans are reckless. If we join them and they lose, the Dominion will never forgive us." But one thing was clear: no one saw humanity as weak anymore. They had become a force to be reckoned with. The Dominion's desperation. The High Council of the Galactic Dominion was in panic mode. The rebellions, the defections, the humiliation. It was too much. The Dominion had ruled for 1,000 years. They had crushed countless civilizations. And yet, humans, a race they had once considered insignificant, had broken their control. Grand Admiral Vorton stood in front of the council, his jaw clenched. He knew what needed to be done. "The humans must be eliminated," he said coldly. "Not just defeated, wiped out completely." One of the counselors hesitated. "We have already lost too many fleets. What if?" Vorton slammed his fist on the table. "We are the Dominion. Do you want to rule a broken empire, or do you want to crush our enemies once and for all?" Silence. Then, slowly, the council nodded. The order was given. Every remaining Dominion force would be gathered for one final, all-out attack. They would throw everything they had at Earth. This was no longer a war of conquest. This was revenge. Humanity's last stand. Back on Earth, Admiral Jonas Cade and his officers stood in the war room, staring at the reports. The Dominion was mobilizing everything. Every warship, every soldier, every weapon they had left. "They're coming for us," General Hector Vasquez said grimly. Cade nodded. "They're desperate." Commander Riley Morgan, now displayed as a hologram memorial, had warned them before her sacrifice. The Dominion wouldn't stop until they had nothing left. And now, that moment had arrived. "We have to be ready," Cade said. "This will be the biggest battle in human history." Vasquez exhaled. "And if we lose?" Cade's eyes burned with determination. "Then we take as many of them with us as we can." The final choice of the galaxy. As the Dominion's last fleet gathered, a message spread across the universe. A message from Earth. To the rebels, to the neutral empires, to anyone who had ever feared the Dominion. This is our final stand. If you have ever dreamed of freedom, if you have ever wanted to break the chains of the Dominion, then fight with us. Now is the time. The message echoed across the stars. Some races hesitated. Some ignored it. But many, many more prepared for war. Because this wasn't just about humanity anymore. This was about freedom for the entire galaxy. The battle for the galaxy begins. As the final Dominion Armada moved toward Earth, another force began to gather. A fleet unlike any other. A fleet of humans, rebels, and those who had finally chosen to stand against tyranny. The final battle was coming. The fate of Earth, the Dominion, and the entire galaxy would be decided. And for the first time, the Dominion was not the only superpower in the universe. Humanity had risen. And now, they were leading the charge. The final warning. The last war in the galaxy had begun. The Dominion's final fleet, the largest armada ever assembled, was speeding toward Earth. Every last warship, every last soldier, every last weapon they had left was aimed at humanity. This was not a conquest. This was vengeance. If they could not rule the galaxy, they would burn it down with them. But they were not alone. For the first time in history, humanity was not fighting alone. Behind Earth, a new allied fleet had gathered. Rebel ships, rogue fleets, and defectors from the Dominion itself. It was an army of the oppressed, led by the only race that had ever stood up to the Dominion and survived. It was humanity's war now. And this time, they were going to end it. The battle begins. The moment the Dominion fleet arrived in Earth's orbit, the sky turned to fire. Massive superweapons fired, blasting apart entire starships in seconds. Dominion shock troops landed on Earth's surface, determined to wipe out every last human. Human and rebel fleets clashed against the Dominion's final warships in the greatest space battle the galaxy had ever seen. But something was different this time. The Dominion was fighting for survival. Humanity was fighting for victory. And that made all the difference. The fall of the Dominion. Aboard the Dominion flagship, Grand Admiral Vorton watched in horror as his forces fell apart. The humans were supposed to be weak. The rebels were supposed to be scattered. And yet here they were, organized, powerful, unstoppable. One by one, Dominion dreadnoughts exploded, their shields overwhelmed by the combined might of humanity and its new allies. On the ground, Dominion soldiers were outnumbered, ambushed by humans who refused to be conquered and rebels who had waited centuries for this moment. The unstoppable Dominion Empire was crumbling. And then the unthinkable happened. A group of Dominion officers, his own people, turned against him. "We have lost," one of them said, his voice filled with quiet rage. Vorton glared at them. "You dare betray the Dominion." The officer clenched his fists. "You lost the moment you underestimated the humans." And with that, Vorton was shot by his own men. The Dominion's leadership collapsed from the inside, just as their empire collapsed from the outside. The war was over. The Dominion was finished. The final warning. Across the galaxy, as the last Dominion warships fell, a message was sent out, broadcasted to every planet, every species, every leader in the universe. A message from Earth, from humanity. A final warning to anyone who would ever think of underestimating them again. The message was simple. We were never weak. You just never gave us a reason to fight. Now you know what happens when you do. A new era begins. With the Dominion gone, the galaxy was free for the first time in centuries. But freedom was dangerous. Power vacuums led to new wars, new struggles. Humanity had a choice. Step back and let the galaxy shape itself, or leave the new order themselves. Admiral Jonas Cave stood at the command center, watching the galaxy map. The war was over, but their work was just beginning. General Hector Vasquez smirked. "So what now, Admiral?" Cade exhaled. "Now, we build something better." For the first time in history, humanity was not just fighting to survive. Now they were shaping the future of the galaxy itself. And the universe would never be the same again. The end, or the beginning. The war was over, but new threats would rise. And now, The galaxy knew the truth. Humanity was no longer just another species. They were a force of nature, and no one would ever laugh at them again.